See, we are live. Happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How are you all doing? I'm going to do my new normal drill and see if I can find this in the group because sometimes I don't see the comments otherwise. If not, I will try to refresh so that I can properly see this. We're not going to do the Instagram, Facebook live thing again. I was having fun doing that, but I think it actually ends up being a little distracting for some of us. But we will be here. We're having a good conversation today. We're going to talk about, do you want to make an extra 10K this year? Not 10K, but an extra 10K. We're going to talk about the mindset of extra. We're going to talk about some important things to remember when it comes to marketing through the end of the year for making an extra 10K or 10K this year, but also your results for next year, as well as some strategies you can play with if you want to bring in some extra cash before the end of the year. I do this every week. Y'all, there has to be a better way. My efficiency brain is like, how is everybody else finding their lives in their group? There has to be a better way, and I'm going to give up in a second. That makes me wonder how you all find me when I'm live, because I can never find myself to see the comments. We'll give this one more second. Otherwise we're going to give up. We're not going to give up. We're just going to move on to the conversation. If you're live now or later, drop me emoji, say hi. We always do a giveaway to thank you for being live and just to also encourage you to be here live, because I personally have so much more fun when we get to have a conversation around all of this. And I think that always brings out more for the rest of the group when we're doing that as well. Okay, yeah, I'm not finding me in the group, but hopefully we'll see the comments here. Hey, nice to see you, Jalen. And if you do, you have been officially entered to win. We're giving away today a copy of my workshop that is Leverage Your Unique Millionaire Money Blueprint. It's a really great one that we have as a paid option on my website. It walks you through understanding your millionaire money blueprint, your relationship with money, how to shift that so that you can set yourself up to create true wealth on your terms and really understand the things you want to shift with your relationship with money. That I personally use this as well. So you've officially been entered, and anybody who else wants to comment while we're live, we will jam into that. But let's dig into today's topic. So if you're on my email list, you heard me chat about this. I think I opened this with like, who isn't here for extra? I personally love extra. I love extra guacamole. I love extra leg space on the airplane. I like extra time with my family and friends, right? I just love extra. I think sometimes I can be a little extra. I'm never going to be mad at extra. My husband and I go and get smoothies sometimes from this place up the street. And, there's always like that extra smoothie on the end. I'm like, hi, can we have the extra smoothie? Like, I'm just here for extra. And my husband and I were actually talking about this because I think there's such a mindset around extra and overflow and being available for that and here for that I just naturally have, and it's how I approach business and it's how I approach money. And my husband and I were talking about how different that is from the mindset of just sort of like getting just enough or getting what you're given or like just trying to figure out how to like scrape by or make it, and how different that is. And that's really what prompted this conversation. And I think this time of year, hey Laura, nice to have you. I think particularly as we hit the end of the year, this is always, and I think, an important mindset and an important conversation. But I think just a lot gets kicked up right now through the end of the year. Y'all will have to tell me if this is true for you, but I see through my clients, there's a lot that gets kicked up with Black Friday next week. And then as we hit December, we're going to do a live stream next week. I think it's next week. We're going to talk a little bit more about like strategic planning for the end of the year and into 2024. But I find there's also just a lot that gets kicked up in terms of, have you hit your revenue goals yet? Scarcity. Oh my gosh, there's holiday spending. I think Black Friday can kick up either like hustle push mode or that like FOMO mode if you don't have something, or that like why the fuck should I even bother mode. I think as we get into December, there's so much around like, oh, should I just like take my foot off the gas and relax and I worked so hard all year, or holy shit, I'm stressed because I haven't hit my goals. I think there's just a general extraness, and not the kind of extra, the positive extra we're talking about, that can be triggered this time of the year. So if you're feeling that, first and foremost, let's just normalize that. I do think that happens, and I'm hoping this conversation will help ease some of that, and that next week's conversation will help you think a little bit more about how to plan without burning out through the holidays, because that's a whole different conversation. But what I want us to dig into today is, again, knowing that might be coming up for some people, and even if it's not, I think many of us, like, even if that's not coming up, like, who doesn't want to close the year out with a little extra cash? I know this was a couple of years ago when I had my first, I think we had our first 365K year. I remember it was about this time. of the year where we'd had a good year already, but I remember the mindset and the mentality and some of the things we're going to talk about here. I just sort of like kicked in this place where it's like, I've done great, but also like it would be so fun to have a little extra. And like that just sort of like kicked me into another gear. So I want to talk about that mentality, that mindset, but also some of the strategy piece I want you to remember as we go through the end of the year. And then again, we will dig into some actual practical, like just some things my clients are doing to bring in an extra 10K through the end of the year. And again, let me know if you have questions or reflections or thoughts. If you're like, yes, I'm feeling that, Kim, to normalize it for everyone else. Or if you're not feeling that, I think that's also helpful for everyone to hear, to have some evidence it doesn't have to be that way. Let's start with, though, let's rewind the tape a little bit. One of the bullet points I have is the truth about marketing and sales this time of year, and why this matters for your business and bank account now and next year, and what this has to do with making extra money. And as we're talking through this, I said make an extra 10K because I think I picked that because I think for most of us, even if you made $1 million this year in business, 10K is a significant amount of money that even after taxes and team, right, it feels like overflow, but this might be an extra $1,000, right? This isn't about like you need to make an extra 10K by the end of the year. I feel like that's always so important for me to say. I'm not here to say what the right amount of money to make or to glorify 10K months or 10K anything. I just often know 10K months, for example, are often, that's the amount that puts you a little over six figures, where after taxes and team expenses allows you to pay yourself a healthy salary that most people need to be able to replace whatever salary they had to be able to go full-time in business. An extra 10K, the reason I'm choosing that, but sub this in for whatever feels good for you. It might be an extra 100K for some of you. It might be an extra $500, right? They're all right. It's not about the specific number. So much of this is more about the mindset, the strategy, the way we're approaching business, and starting to think about, and how can we start thinking about not just enough and getting into that mindset of extra, and what would be about an amount of extra that like would actually make a difference as you're closing out the year. Either feel really fun to celebrate, or like let you buy something special for your business or for yourself, or put into your investments to max out your investments or your retirement for the year. Hey, Mirren, hello, perfect timing. Yay. So glad, so fun to have people here. You're all entered to win our giveaway. And I just like having this conversation. So I think what's really important to remember with what I was saying is this is a time of year where feelings around finances and money and business results can get heightened. And I just want to see everyone in that, if that is your experience, to normalize that. And what I always like to remind my clients is you get to have your feelings, and your feelings are valid, and we want to process that, but your feelings make a shitty CEO. And what I mean by that is like process your feelings, but remember, if your feelings like, oh, this year has been like, what's the point? Or I'm in scarcity, or no one buys, or what's the point? Like, I don't want to try anymore, right? That you get to have those feelings. You get to process that. All of your feelings and emotions are valid. And I'm always speaking with clients about how can we, as a human being, as the person who's showing up to be the CEO, how can we separate out you as a human to work through what's coming up so that you can then step into your role as a CEO. It's why I talk so much about your CEO role, because you as a human do not have to be a CEO 24/7, but you do have a CEO role you want to step into for business. And so remembering that, if you're feeling that, you get to be human, you get to feel the feels, but I would invite you to think about how can I process that outside of my business? Because what I find happens this time of year is this is when I find so many people, I'm trying to think of a better phrase. The phrase I've always heard, this happens in launches all the time. This happens like 3 days before cart closes and launches, or a week before cart closes and launches. People shit the bed, so to say, and it's a horrible phrase. So someone give me a better phrase. Stop short of the finish line, maybe. But so many people are just over it, and I think so many emotions get triggered that what happens is people take their foot off the gas. They don't even go for extra. They don't even go for seeing their business through until they're taking time off. And this is not about hustling. This is not about overworking. This is not about not taking time off for Thanksgiving if you celebrate, or into the holidays. I have plenty of clients who are taking all of December off or half of December off. So I don't want you to hear this as like, oh, I now have to like push and hustle. That is, none of this conversation is about that. This is about a mindset, and this is about strategy and understanding business. But if we're in that mindset of like, what's the point, and or super stressed because of finances, or feeling super constricted or super mad at what happens this time of year, in air quotes, or we're telling ourselves a story, people don't buy this time of year, insert all of this, right? It's really easy to start clocking out of business. And forget an extra 10K or 1K or whatever you want to make. That is the quickest way to not only not make money right now, but what I always want you to remember is what you're thinking today and what you're doing today doesn't just impact today, and it doesn't just impact your results through the end of the year. Right? Of course, we can talk about how to make an extra 10K through the end of the year, but what you're doing today, what you're thinking and doing today is also what starts to plant the seeds for January and what starts to plant the seeds for the end of quarter 1 and what your 2024 results are. Businesses we have client and customer journeys. Results don't like happen overnight, right? Where most results are, if we rewind the clock, are a result of what you thought and what you did 90 days, 180 days prior. And so if right now, today, we're starting to spin out, we're starting to say, what's the point? We're starting to take our foot off the gas, right? It's forget the extra 10K. It's how is that impacting your business next year? And this is not to create a doomsday scenario or to freak people out. And I'm going to keep saying this. This is not about pushing through the holidays. I'm taking plenty of time off over the holidays, right? That is not the conversation we're having. But I do want to remind you that part of what the truth here that I want to remind everyone is we still got a lot of year left. And so not only is there a lot of year to make an extra 10K, but there's a lot of year for your business and a lot of days have nothing to do with Black Friday. I don't have a Black Friday offer, spoiler alert. Lots of my clients do. Some of my clients have some really big Black Friday offers, but this isn't about Black Friday. This is about through the end of the year. And I really want to encourage everyone to be a voice for how can you treat your business like a business? How can you step into your CEO role? How can you make decisions today that are going to, yes, make you that extra 10K or 1K or 100K, but also that are going to set you up for really great results and a really great solid foundation in 2024. And that means that marketing and sales, we don't want to stop them now. The best gift you can give your business, and I'm going to give you some more strategic some more strategies, some more specific ways to play with bringing in extra cash through the end of the year, because I have some specifics I want to speak to. But as a general concept, I really want to encourage everyone to think about, and we'll talk about this more from a planning perspective next week, how are you making sure you're staying in your business and your business is continuing to show up and market and sell. That is one of the biggest gifts you can give your business. And I think something to remember, and this is where some of that extra cash can come in before we even play with, any fun strategies or anything like that. Remember, so many people are checking out this time of year. So many people are in the mindset of no one buys in November, no one buys in December. The business year ends in November, which is crazy to me, when the truth is so many people buy in November and December. I think this can be for many businesses some of the busiest time. This is when people are, if you're a business selling to other businesses, right, this is when people are maxing out tax savings and credits. If you're selling not to other businesses, this is when people are buying gifts for themselves, for others. When people are like really in a spending mode, this is, I think, such a great time to be in business. Of course, and we'll talk about this towards the end of the live stream, we want to be mindful of who are your clients, what is your audience, what are they going through this time of year. Let's say you're a health and fitness instructor and coach. Sure, maybe January is when you really have that pop time, because that is a prime time for people to start new routines. But that doesn't mean people aren't thinking about it right now. And so I really want to encourage everyone to remember that other people might be over it, but if other people are over it, what's the way that you get to win in business is always not looking at what everyone else is doing. That is the quickest way to not win in business, but to create that blue ocean, to be the business owner that is showing up differently, that is doing things differently. If everybody else is tapping out, that also means there are fewer people selling right now. What a beautiful time to market and sell. So let me know if you have questions about that. I feel like that is pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty practical, but I do think this is something that we can almost forget about. And I think it's something, if you're in some stories, especially if you have stories about this time of year, or if you're seeing what other people are doing, or if you're feeling frustrated, is easy to forget. And I would really, really encourage everyone here to think about how can I stay consistent through the end of the year. And remember, staying consistent does not have to mean all the time. It does not have to mean hustling or grinding it out. It doesn't even have to mean you have to be the person that is consistent, right? This might be your team. This might be you have something set up on automation. This might mean, but how can you continue to market and sell? Because again, that's going to support some of what we talk about in terms of how to make an extra 10K or 1K or 100K, but also how you're setting up next year's success. And I know everybody here wants next year to be awesome. This is not the conversation today, but I was having a conversation about this with a client just before I hopped on this live stream. We were talking about how I think this year in particular has just been, I'm trying to even think of find the right word. I think it's just been a reset year in the online space. We've talked about this in different ways, right? We got super crowded post-COVID. We've got economy worries, concerns. We've had industry, if you're in the coaching, personal development space, constrictions, a lack of trust. I think it has been a year of resetting and refining and rebuilding for a lot of businesses. And I think it has been such a gift and so needed. I personally think I'm really excited about this year, but if that's what this year is, what I'd be thinking about is how can I see that out strong through the end of the year? Because if this is a reset, a rebuild, it's almost like resetting that foundation. That means if you see that through, next year gets to be the springboard, right? Like resetting, rebuild, like restructuring a foundation. I look outside my window every day in New York City and see skyscrapers, and I just think, right, when that happens, that's what precedes a massive up level. That's what precedes a skyscraper going up, but we have to see that reset, that rebuild all the way through. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to do that all next year. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's talk mindset, and then I do want to get into a little bit more of just some of the ways I want to invite you to think about some of the strategies for how to bring in some extra cash through the end of the year and just marketing and selling overall through the end of November, December. But the mindset shift and the piece we were talking about at the beginning of this live stream, and I am so curious to hear how everybody else thinks about this, because I tend to go through the lens I see through my clients and my peers, but I really think there is such a shift that happens when you start to approach your business not from the lens of how can I scrape by, how can I just get enough, how can I like survive, into like what is the extra that's available. I think just overall with money, that is such a different mindset, and it changes. This is like so mindset 101, so forgive me because I know everybody here, so I know this group, you're quite advanced with mindset concepts, but I think it's just a helpful reminder for us to remember why these narratives and why mindset is so important. If we have a thought, if we have a story, if we have a narrative, that changes our perception, that changes what we notice, that changes our viewfinder, and then that changes the strategies we pick and how we specifically show up to take action on those strategies, and then the results we get on the other side. And what I notice so often for myself and through clients is we can so often be doing the, in air quotes, the right things and going through the motions. But if the narrative we're telling ourselves on the back end is, oh my gosh, how can I like just survive? Or how can I like do just enough to get by this season? Or like, how am I gonna make it through the end of the year? Or like, how can I make just enough to pay my bills? Right? That is the mindset that is literally painting your viewfinder. Your viewfinder is literally then looking at strategies, actions, even the opportunities in front of you of just enough, get by, survive, right? And so even if we take a basic strategy of showing up in a Facebook group to engage and to connect, right? You're going to see that through the lens of scarcity. You're going to see that through the lens of how can I do just enough to get by, right? Even the actions you're going to take, it's going to even change literally the energy through what you do. Whereas if we're taking that lens of I'm going after extra, I want extra, like I'm here for extra. What I see with that mindset is two different things are happening. One, as soon as you're looking for extra, what you're telling your subconscious mind is I already have enough. I'm already safe. I'm already secure, right? Extra is the icing on the cake. That means you've already got the cake. You're not saying, how do I just like scrounge up enough flour and eggs to make a cake? You're saying, I've already got a delicious, yummy cake here. I've already got more than enough. I'm here for some extra, right? When I'm at the smoothie shop and I ask for that little extra, the overflow, right? I'm asking for that because I see we've already got a full smoothie. There's more than enough here. I'm not taking away from anyone. There's just abundance right in front of me. I can see that. Why not ask for it, right? Like that's what extra implies. And I think literally by asking, how can I make an extra 10K? How can I look for extra? Like, how am I available for extra as opposed to how do I make enough? How do I get by? You're starting to train your brain to believe you have enough, that there's already enough, like the bases are covered. is this landing? Is this making sense for y'all? If that concept making sense, right? Which starts to have you, hey, that's gonna calm your nervous system. That's going to have you feel safer. That's going to shift you out of scarcity and into more of that stable, secure, I have enough mentality, which when we're not in scarcity and when we feel more secure, when we feel like we have enough, we start to approach marketing and sales differently. If I'm feeling like I'm just scraping by and I need to like just figure out how to make enough money, I'm approaching my marketing from the mindset. I hate this term, but I use this term intentionally here. It's very client hunting. It's very much like I'm chasing money because I don't have enough and I need that to feel safe and secure. I need that to actually feel like I can breathe, right? Who's ever said that before? It's like, I just need to book a client so I can breathe. I just need to make this money so I can breathe, right? That makes it very much about you and your personal needs, what we were talking about at the beginning of the live stream, as opposed to you as a CEO and what your business needs to thrive and what your clients need to thrive. And so even in that, right, when we're operating from scarcity and we're not thinking about extra, right, we're literally approaching clients, we're approaching business, we're approaching marketing, we're approaching sales from a very what can I get mentality, and what can I get to feel safe, to feel whole, to feel good enough, as opposed to I already feel whole, I already feel safe, I already feel good enough, I already have enough. How can I show up in a way where I've got something to give, but I don't need it? And right, I don't need that extra smoothie when I'm at the smoothie shop. I'm just like, I feel so full and complete. This is so great. This is so yummy. And like, I would love to ask if I can have that, but I'm also totally okay if you don't give that to me. Is that making sense? Or to get such a different mindset and such a different approach than to bring into business or to bring into your money. The other thing I think happens is when we shift into, like, let's think about making an extra 10K this year. Let's think about making an extra $1,000. What I think that's also asking you to do, if we then think about how that changes your perception, how that changes your the strategies you choose and how you specifically take action within that strategy, you might literally do the same thing every day. But what you're also starting to say is, extra is available to me. How can I notice and spot the extra, right? Because I'm so available for extra, I notice that extra smoothie sitting there and I'm happy to ask for it. Whereas I was like, oh, I never get enough and I I just can barely get by and I everything sucks for me. I don't know, if I just had such a different mindset, I might not even notice that extra smoothie was there to ask for me. This is such a silly example, but I think silly examples are very analogous to what happens in business. If we're shifting into that mindset of extra, you're going to start to notice, oh my gosh, look at all these extra people in front of me that I could reach out to, that I could offer a free call to, that I could market to. Look at all these extra opportunities, right? You start to notice those. But I think the other thing that happens is the way in which you show up with your strategy changes completely. So the mindset of extra, I always like to use working out as an example. If I'm thinking about how do I just stay in shape and how do I just not get fat over the holidays, and that's a whole nother horrible mentality we're just not going to unpack today, but let's just say that's the mindset versus how can I be in extra healthy shape? How can I be extra fast when I run my family race at the holidays? If I'm just how can I just get through the holidays, right? I'm going to show up and just do the bare minimum at the gym. I'm probably going to punish myself. I'm probably going to have a shit mentality and maybe not even going to want to show up because it feels horrible and it feels like punishment. Versus if I'm how can I be in extra great shape? Or how can I get extra fast to beat my own time we have a family race every year the day after Christmas. What I'm probably going to do is want to show up extra to the gym. I'm probably going to want to do an extra 10 minutes on the treadmill. If I'm doing sit-ups, I'm going to want to do an extra set, right? I'm going to feel motivated because it feels good and because it feels like it's getting me something yummy and fun to want to take that extra action. I'm probably going to show up differently. Even if I don't want to do extra at the gym, right? I'm probably going to show up for the same workout in a completely different way instead of just phoning it in or dragging my ass or pushing too hard and burning myself out, right? I'm going to bring such a different energy to that, and that's going to change my results completely. Is this tracking? Let's see. Mira says, yes, I've been telling myself I've decided, it's already a done deal. Yes, it's exactly that. This is a decision, and a decision draws a line in the sand. As soon as we decide, we're saying we're not available for something else. This is happening no matter what. It is inevitable. And I think that is so, so powerful. And I think then what we get to play with this is let's all decide that extra is available. We live in the most wild, abundant world, and we are all so blessed to be in a time as business owners where we get to use the online space. I think sometimes I hear from clients how much they hate online and hate social media and it's such a drag, blah, blah, blah. And look, I get it. There are things on social media that can be tough. I have to deal with some of that as well. I have plenty of clients who don't use social media, so this isn't about use social media or not. This is about thinking about how do we start to shift our mindset to see, look at what an extra abundant world we live in, where we have this technology that we can all connect with one another, with extra humans, where we can open our businesses up for extra abilities to serve and to bring in revenue that just weren't available to us in the past. I mean, it is wild to me. I think living in New York City probably puts this in my face so much, but I'm also looking for it, just how many like extra things there are that are, if we think about it, just so unnecessary, but so beautifully abundant or overflow. And that's just, there's so much available to all of us, but starting to train our brain and decide, I want that, I'm going after that, I get to have that, as opposed to I'm just settling for just enough. And this is not to say make yourself wrong if you're not there yet or if you're not getting it, right? There's a time gap always from when we decide something and start showing up for something and when it presents itself to us. But you set yourself up with a head start if you start with the mindset of there's so much extra available to me. How can I be open to receive that? How can I be open to go after that? As opposed to, I don't believe that's available, or I'm just going to try to scrape by, or I'm just going to try to go for enough. Let me just see if there's anything else. Decision brings clarity, says Jalen. Yes, decision brings clarity, and decision also creates, I think, direction and focus, right? When I think so often we don't decide something because we know as soon as we decide, not only does that bring clarity, but it's like a laser beam in terms of here's your focus, here's what, where like we're like narrowing things out. And usually when we decide something, because of the clarity and the focus, we're ruling out a lot of things, and we know that it's going to be go time. And I think that is confronting for our brains. I think our subconscious mind is like, it feels very safe to be in indecision, right? It feels very safe to not decide something, because then you also don't have to focus and have that clarity and have to rule out all of these other options, and then you don't have to take action in the same way. And you don't have to potentially be disappointed. You have a whole conversation around that. The power of decision is powerful, and I think that's also why we avoid it so often and why it can feel scary and confronting for the brain. So maybe this is an opportunity for everyone, like, who wants to decide to not settle, who wants to decide that like today is the day they're done settling and they're done just getting by, and deciding to go for extra, deciding that they're going to show up in a way where they're available to ask for, to look for, to notice, to run after, to take extra action. And again, this does not mean burnout. This does not mean push. This does not mean don't take time off in December and work more days than you were going to work. What we're talking about is the gym example of, if I do an extra 10 sit-ups, right? That is extra. That is what, less than a minute of time, but that is going to give me a massive different result if I do that every time I go to the gym. If I go to my spin class tonight and like, I want to be faster, I want to get extra fast, I'm just going to see like, what extra do I have to give? Like, what extra, I'm deciding to do extra. It's the same 45-minute class, but what that means is I can decide to turn the resistance up 1 or 2 knobs extra than I usually would, or than anyone else. It means I can decide to find that extra oomph I have when we're in a sprint, instead of like, I'm just gonna do like good enough here, right? It just means within that time frame of what I'm already spending time doing, I'm just gonna show up to bring that extra, and that is massively going to change how I feel, but also my result, especially over time and when that compounds. So that's how I would be playing with this. Like, can we make that decision today? I'm going to bring my extra. I'm going to look for extra. Extra is available to me. I'm going to show up with my extra. But to see that as within the things you're already doing, this does not have to mean go do more things. It's within what you're already doing. How can you bring that extra 1%? If everyone here did an extra 3% with whatever they're already doing, that alone would make you more money. But I'm going to give you some specifics around that as well. Lindsay says, hi, catching you live. Hi, nice to see you, Lindsay. Yes, a little extra over the long run makes a huge difference. It's like the the compound effect in terms of investing, that we're so wired for instant gratification. Lindsay, I know you do things with health and fitness, so I'm sure you see this so much with your clients in terms of like making that extra, like these small extra shifts in terms of either how they're working out or what they're changing their diet, how that compounds over time. But I think about this with my finances. We're sitting on a pretty healthy financial portfolio, but it's not because I like did a massive extra like investment one day. It's this that I've always just put in a little extra than I needed to, or a little extra than was comfortable, or I've just been always very, I know I want to have lots of extra when I retire, so I've always just put in a little extra when we invest, and that's allowed me to max things out. That's allowed us to, over time, over years and years and years, right? Like that really adds up and compounds. Okay, y'all get me. I'm preaching to the choir, but I want to bring this up because I think if we have that mentality, if you change nothing else, this is the mindset I would love for everyone to start thinking about in business, both from that abundance standpoint in terms of like, just how can you notice all the extra that's available? Can you notice that extra smoothie that I notice when I go to buy my smoothie that's sitting there in the blender, and let yourself be available to ask for it and to receive it and decide that gets to be yours, but also from an action standpoint, what is that extra? People always say 1%, but I'm going to say 3%. I don't think it needs to be an extra 90%, but I think it's an extra 3%, right? We want to go just a little bit more than 1% if we really want to see that massive difference in our results. Right, I'm going to do an extra 3% today in spin class. I'm extra as a human, so I'll probably go an extra 10%. But right, I just know it doesn't have to be an extra 100%. But that is where we really start to see the shifts. Which brings us to, if this is all making sense, let's talk a little bit then, if we're getting out of that scarcity mindset, if we're getting out of that just getting by mindset, if we're starting to shift into how much extra is available, I'm already trusting that there is enough here, I am safe, I am secure, right? I'm abundant, what is that extra that's available to me? Let's talk a little bit about some specifics on, great, so if we want to make an extra 10K by the end of the year, or if you want to set yourself up to make an extra 10K in January, or 1K or 100K. Remember, this is not about the specific money amount, but if we're going to take the mentality, what are some things to be thinking about as we are closing out the year? Because we're not going to take our foot off the gas. We're going to continue to market and sell, right? We're going to see this through the end of the year, or until you're shutting doors for the holidays. But I'm guessing most of you are not closing your business December 1st and are probably sticking around till at least like the 15th or something. Here are a couple things I would be thinking about that I'm talking with clients about. Obviously, we have Black Friday next week, and hold on. I just got something in my throat. And Nala is joining us. Nala would like some extra food, speaking of extra. So obviously we have Black Friday next week, but I think this is really important to remember. Not that everyone can't do a Black Friday sale, but I would really, with this conversation, unless you already have a strategic plan for Black Friday and something that you have in place, that you have prepped, that you've ideally already been marketing and planning for, I would not take this conversation to mean now go do a bunch of extra work to have a Black Friday sale next week. I think Black Friday is like anything. It requires a little bit of planning and prep, and it is a great time to make some extra cash. And I have some clients who are really strategically showing up, but I do think it is a noisy time. And I would say, again, unless, because that's next week. So unless you've already got something intentionally in plan, that you have some strategy around and a plan for how you're going to, a marketing and a sales plan for that, I would say, okay, so you're probably not showing up for Black Friday, and that is okay. I'm not either. That doesn't mean there aren't other opportunities. Two of the big things that I'm talking about with my clients in terms of like how to bring in that extra cash towards the end of the year is remembering a couple of things right now. One, going back to the marketing and sales perspective and like just putting Black Friday to the side, is really thinking about, this is a seasonal time of the year, and this time of the year does tend to shift up how everybody is experiencing the world, so to say, right? Whether or not whatever holiday you celebrate in December, most people are celebrating something. Most people's schedules get more hectic. Most people have more events they're going to, right? Things change in the month of December. And what I'm really encouraging clients to think about is how can they really be strategic with their messaging, with their marketing, with their offers, to think about what are their people experiencing in the month of December, and how can they make shifts and adjustments to what they're speaking to really speak to the specific needs someone has in December that they might not have in January, or to speak to the needs your clients are going to have in January that you're planting the seeds for in December. But I think sometimes what happens is we almost get tone deaf through the holidays and we forget that people are having a different experience. And that is where I think money gets left on the table, as opposed to where you can make that extra cash in your business. And thinking about then also, what does that mean in terms of if your clients are going through something different, how do you either want to reposition the offers you already have, or is there an opportunity for a flash sale to say, or for taking an offer you already have but slightly repositioning it for a need in the holidays? I was chatting with someone who is a photographer, and I'm trying to think of how to describe this so I'm not like giving away any personal details. But I'm going to be very vague here, but again, because it's important for me that I don't give away perfect personal details. But what we were talking about is how she can look at, for her clientele, they have very specific needs over the holidays and they also have less time, and how can she really position her photography offer instead of just like, I take photos and I can like take these photos for you this time of the year. How can she really drill into why December is the best time for her clientele? And there were some really specific reasons we came up for clients to take her up on some photography, and how this is going to support them and set them up with some of their specific needs this time of the year and moving into the new year, and how to position the offer she already has, but just to reposition it as a special offer to solve that specific problem this time of year. I know this is like very, very vague, but again, I just want to be mindful to not give away anyone's personal details for the new year. So it's not like she's reinventing the wheel. I would not recommend doing that now for December, but she's taking what's already an offer and just kind of like changing up the wrapping paper around that. And then one of the things we spoke about, and I think this is something that pretty much everyone can benefit from as we're going through the end of the year, is as we hit the end of the year, there's two, I think, levers you can play with from a sales perspective if you want to bring in some extra cash. Remember, when we have organic and natural, and then I see a question, I'll jump to the question. If we have organic reasons for scarcity and urgency, those are really great levers in sales. And I say organic because I think people can be manipulative with marketing and sales, and that's not beneficial, but I also think your people are savvy and know the difference. But I do think these are things to think about, because as humans, we suck at making decisions, and we were talking about this earlier, right? We suck at making decisions, and we particularly suck at making buying and investing decisions, because that is asking us to part with money during a time of the year when people are spending money on usually a lot of things. And oftentimes, for most of us in this group, we are offering services that are asking people to either give up time or to do something that might be uncomfortable, right? So those are decisions that are just more challenging for the human brain that likes to stay at status quo, not feel pain, discomfort, step outside its comfort zone, right? Which, making a decision literally uses calories in the brain, which already our brain doesn't like for survival reasons, but also then we're adding on, this feels crunchy for spending money, right? We have to understand these things when we're selling to someone, and to help mitigate these things so someone can make a decision. And so if you can find natural, organic, real, honest, authentic urgency and scarcity markers, that can help someone to make a decision. One of the reasons Black Friday is so great is it's a short sprint that has a start and an end timeline that is authentic, right? We all know Black Friday's sales, like as soon as that's over, it's done, right? That creates some natural urgency. And oftentimes people have limited offers that's an authentic scarcity, which helps people make a decision, because they know otherwise they're gonna have to wait all the way till next year. Well, December, you have the same marker for many of you, right? If your rates are increasing in the new year, if this is the last time this year someone can get into a program, if you can find the authentic reason for why now is the time to buy because it's going to change in the new year, or offer a flash sale special for December for the holidays and that's going to go away after the holidays, right? That's such a great reason to offer it, and that is such a great decision maker that you can really leverage this time of year that is authentic, real, that is true, that is going to help drive more sales, especially if you're helping people understand why December is the time for them to invest. And the other thing, and then I'm coming to this question here. I have not missed that. The other thing that I'm talking with clients about is, and if December is not the right time, I have plenty of clients where it's like, actually, December's not. It's a great time where they want to make that extra 10K and they want to bring in those sales to close out the year strong, but it actually isn't a great time for their people. I have some clients who, we use the photography example. Let's just say you are the photographer, and so like maybe it's a great time because they want to take holiday photos, like family portraits, right? You can really capitalize on that. But maybe it's that you take I'm actually going to use the fitness example because I think we were going with that earlier. Maybe it's that, yes, people like, this is a tough time of year for their eating and for, there's so many challenges because they don't have the time to work out. There's so many more family gatherings and it's also harder to stick to their diet, right? That could be a real way to shift up your messaging and to shift things up for this time of the year, and to say, like, if you book in whatever XYZ program by the end of the year, right, there's this special incentive, but also this is the only time of the year, like this is the best time of the year to change those habits and patterns, and this is like the best opportunity because you're like in the thick of the challenges, and like this is where I can support you the most, right? But maybe it's that all of your people, like, legitimately this is the worst time of the year for them to start your program and they want to start in the new year. What I'm coaching clients around, I think what can be really helpful to still bring in those extra sales and cash is to think about, great, how do you use the same holiday markers but start to waitlist spots for January and have the same incentive where it's like, maybe it's going away, you have a special rate that's going away January 1st, but people can get into your January programs with 2023 pricing, right? That's a great way to bring in those extra sales and cash towards the end of the year, to be really cognizant and aware of maybe what your people are going through. Let's just say, everybody travels and they want to start your program in January. Great, but don't wait till January, right? Bring in those extra sales now when it is such a great time to market, when people are really thinking about investing and spending, when you really can speak to some of the challenges that are maybe more present for them and have that incentive that's going to go away, but waitlist people. And I think waitlists are such a great strategy, but also such a great way to bring in some of those extra sales and cash before the end of the year. All right, let me, because I basically didn't breathe there. Let me read. What about discounting a new offer for Black Friday, one that hasn't been promoted before? What are your thoughts on that? What about discounting a new offer for Black Friday, one that hasn't been promoted before? What are your thoughts on that? I think how I want to answer this. What I would say is there's nothing wrong with putting a discount on Black Friday for a new offer, and I think it can be a way to get some data and to see, like, are there any people that jump, or like, to almost like to hold it lightly and to treat it as more of a test and to see, great, if some people come through, especially if it's a new offer that hasn't been promoted before, or to see it as even a way to start to promote that new offer, and maybe that's a way to get some people in the door, and if not, to collect some data in terms of like what worked with messaging, what didn't work. I think definitely a great way to start the marketing and plant the seeds for a new offer, and then it's almost like icing on the cake if someone buys something, is what I would think. I would say, like, for everyone hearing this, like, you can totally throw something up on Black Friday. There's nothing wrong with that if you haven't planned for it. I would just, in terms of expectations, set the expectations for, like, we're just going to see what happens, and maybe just not put, because we haven't put a ton of marketing, there probably isn't been a whole lot of know, like, and trust and social proof around this offer, and probably haven't primed our audience around this. Maybe set expectations just to see, like, part of what I'm doing then for Black Friday, if this is a brand new offer, is using this as an opportunity to do that. Let me know if that's making sense. And what I might also think about is if it's a brand new offer, what I would, and you haven't maybe, like, warmed your audience up to it and they haven't learned a lot about it, instead of putting a brand new offer in front of people, because if we just put something in front of people and we just slash prices, what we're doing is essentially we're positioning the value of that offer around the price point, right? And we're telling people you should buy this because it's cheap, as opposed to really positioning around the value of the offer and teaching people about the offer. And so what I might do if it's brand new and there hasn't been that warm up is also thinking about, like, is there maybe an opportunity to, well, both to position this really from the way of positioning the value, but also is there more of an entry level option or something that teaches people, that brings people into the world, your world, for this offer, so that you can really nurture them if it's a brand new offer, to sell into the higher ticket offer. Without knowing more details, that's my thought that comes up there. But let me know if you have a follow-up question, if that makes sense. But there's nothing wrong with discounting a new offer and putting it out as something to test for anyone. Like, don't hear me saying, if you haven't thought of something yet, like, don't use Black Friday. I love Black Friday because it's an opportunity to sell. Have at it. I would just say, don't make yourself wrong, anyone here, whether it's a new offer or an existing offer. I think if you have an existing offer that your audience already knows, it tends to be a lot easier always, but especially on Black Friday, for people to know why to jump on it. But if not, don't make yourself wrong. And what I would personally suggest to clients is just knowing, if you're going to sell something on Black Friday, it's not about just putting something out once, right? If we're going to sell anything, we want to have multiple touch points, and what's the marketing on the front end, and what's the number of either sales emails or follow-ups on the back end. I would just be aware that you're going to put that effort in, and just to set expectations. And my thought process there would be, but is that okay, because I'm creating these assets that I'm going to use again for a launch, or that I'm going to use again to sell this in the future. So even if this is the first time and maybe I haven't primed my audience a ton, and I'll get a couple sales, I'm going to reuse this either next year for another launch, so it's totally worth it. Hopefully that made sense. Here's this great perspective. Thank you. Great. Let me know if you have a follow-up question around that, though. And everyone, if you have other follow-up questions, like, I want this to be valuable for everyone. And this doesn't mean, again, I want to keep hearing this. This does not mean you can't put some stuff out. Like, if you want to just, people have Black Friday promos and you're like, I just want to slash the price on something and put that out there, totally have at it. I would just level set expectations and just see, like, it's just icing on the cake if you make some extra cash from that. As opposed to, I have clients where it's like, this time of year, they really strategically use Black Friday as part of how they're bringing in some extra cash. And for them, because that's the case, we've just done a little bit more strategy prep work around it, so they can really maximize what this sale is going to be for them in their business. But they're also planning on that a little bit more. Okay, I think that makes sense. Okay, so a couple other ways, just in terms of some ways to think about how can we're thinking about extra. How can you think about, yes, we're going to continue to market sell, but how can we strategically think about how we're bringing in extra towards the end of the year? So we were talking a little bit about solving those seasonal problems is the way I think about it. And this, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this so it doesn't sound horrible. I mean this in the best way possible, but with what we were talking about, I would also think about solving seasonal problems in terms of people's problems are different, or desires, right? I think we're either solving problems or meeting desires for people, but I think also really thinking about how can you highlight for people how their problems or desires are different and maybe might be intensified this time of the year. I have a client who works with people on money stuff, and again, I'm going to be vague just so that you don't know who it is, because that's very important to me. But one of the things we were talking about is just how much gets kicked up around finances this time of the year. But because of that, it's also such an opportune time for her people to dig into some of the work she does around the mindset and the practical planning she supports them with, because it's sort of like everything is being brought to the surface. And so it's important enough for them to pay attention to, where maybe in March, right, these are still patterns and things they need to address, but they're just not as, they're not hitting home as close. It's almost like they can brush it under the rug a little bit more. It's sort of like the difference between if you have a small pebble in your shoe or an actual hole in your shoe, the pebble in your shoe, you still need to get that pebble out of your shoe. It's gonna fuck your foot up if you're running for a long time. But if you have an actual hole in your shoe, right, you're let me replace these shoes, or let me fix this shoe. I don't know, I have the weirdest analogies today, y'all. But I think with December, right, if there are, for your people, if their problems are a little heightened, or if their challenges or their desires are a little heightened, I do think that is an opportunity, and not from like a gross slimy way of like, how can we like push on someone's pain points and make them feel really bad so that they buy from me, right? I think that's like when we get into like gross bro marketing, like that's I think when sales feels really yucky, but really from the place of service in terms of what is literally coming up for my people that might be a bit more heightened, that might be a bit more intense? Like, are there challenges or desires feeling bigger this time of year? And why is that the best time for them to get support? Why is that the best time for them to take a look at what's going on, for them to invest in my product or service? And how can I communicate that? Or how can I position or put different wrapping paper on my offer, or really let someone know that's important? I'll use myself as an example, right? I think I've been talking about this a fair amount, where this isn't me trying to like press on anyone's pain points or make anyone feel horrible, or to be like, you have to hire me. The truth is, I know your results next year and your finances and what your business does in 2024 and how much money you make at the end of quarter one. If you're waiting until the beginning of January, you've kind of waited too late. It's not that it's too late. I mean, it's never too late, but like that's going to affect you more into Q2. Like it starts now. It started last month, right? Like now is the best time to start thinking about your strategy and your mindset and your action, because I just know we're just going to see that delay with when results show up, right? And so that maybe is like could be perceived as me pressing on people's pain points, but I think it's also just the truth and the reality, and why I think this is such a great time of year to focus on strategy, to take a look at and start thinking about not just the end of December, but like next year, and like what are we looking at with messaging, with marketing, with like a lot of my clients right now, we're already planning their conversion events for January, February, March, because now is the time to be thinking about that, because they also need time to create those assets. So that's what I'm talking about here. It's not from a like, how do you create false pain points or how do you make people feel horrible, but from a service provider standpoint, as a smart business person, if you want to make an extra 10K or more, right, these are the things I'd be thinking about. And that's what I'd be thinking about speaking to, because I do think this time of year does present different challenges or heighten some of those challenges or desires as well, right? Where many of us are selling to desires. So hopefully that makes sense. But let me know if you have a question around that. We talked about having special incentives or offers that end at the end of this year. If you're thinking about raising your rates, right? Maybe they raise in the new year. I think all of those are really great marketing levers and sales levers for all of the reasons even if you're not using Black Friday, that Black Friday is so great, because there is a time, there is natural scarcity and urgency, and there's that timeline, that is that organic intentional timeline that someone has to make a decision by. And as humans, we have such real FOMO, right? And if I know I want to work with you and I want to hire you, and you tell me the offer is going to go away, the spot's going to go away, the price point is going to go away, or it's going to increase, if I actually want it, that's really going to help me make that decision. We talked about if now isn't the right time, or let's say I have a client who's taken a good amount of December off, but we're still looking at how she can make this extra cash to close out the year. We're really thinking about waitlisting or booking clients in now with those same urgency, scarcity markers, with the same incentives, but to book for January, to book for February spots, right? I do that a lot, where I've told many of you, right, we're booking spots for January already. We do have some December spots as well, though. But right, like speaking to that and letting people know, like that is a great way, again, to bring in that extra cash in sales. And what I think, like, talk about extra, what a beautiful extra overflow, and what a beautiful way to close out the year when you've already started to set up the new year with clients or with money coming in. I think that's also just such a great way, mindset wise, and just really nice for the sustainability of your business. Similarly, I think this can be similar to the wait list, which is pre-selling those spots for the new year. I think that's kind of that same concept there. The last two pieces here, last two just ideas for you. And as I'm sharing these ideas, I'm sharing these just so you can think about what might work for you. Please, for the love of all things good. And Nala joined us. She's here with us. For the love of all things, please do not get off this live stream and now feel like you need to go implement 100 things. That is, I so don't want you to walk away from this. If anything, I hope you walk away from this and it's implement one thing, or take this and you're like, oh, let me just adjust my messaging in December a little bit, or oh, I'm already going to be selling XYZ thing, let me put in a special incentive through the end of the year. But please, I do not want, the last thing I want is I'm giving a bunch of ideas or like thoughts that I'm working with clients and someone to hear this and like, let me go try all of these, pick one thing. Or just think about this in terms of how you're showing, like use this as more of like the extra mindset or how you're going to show up. And because I'm not coaching everyone here one-on-one, it's really important because that will have you burn out in December, and it's a beautiful holiday season as well. Most of us are also taking some time to chill. So please, 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 please don't hear any of that this way. I just wanted to share. I think it's also nice to know, what are people doing? How are people making money in December when everyone says no one buys in December? And how are people making extra money in December? So the last two thoughts that I had here, now I have to, okay. So one of them was bonuses. So I think what's also fun is I think we think so much about incentives in terms of like, prices are going up, or here's like the $250 off, which, those sorts of things. But I think this is a beautiful time of year. It is literally a gift giving time of year to think about what bonuses, what gifts, whether that's a gift you want to give your audience for free that leads them into a sales funnel that you sell off the back end that can make you an extra 10K, right? You can think about it that way. We have a gift coming. Like, spoiler alert, I have a gift coming for you in December, and it is free and it is super valuable. And of course, I know it's super valuable and it's a gift, and I'm also a business owner. Things can be both. I can be super generous and super giving and give you something that I think most people would pay a lot of money for free, and also know that on the back end of that, of course, that's going to also make me money and make me extra sales and bring in extra clients, right? Like, it gets to be both. And so that is a gift, that is a bonus. But I think this is a beautiful time of year that you can think about. It doesn't have to just be, how can I go sell something and like slash prices? It can also be, what bonuses, what gifts do I have that I want to give my audience that bring people into my world, that allow me to make that extra money, right? This is what we're doing all year long with conversion events. But I do think this time of year is a time where you can be a little more generous with that, right? You can frame it more as a gift. But I think also then bonuses, I think bonuses are a little different. If you are selling something, is there a holiday bonus? Is there a holiday gift that if someone buys your program, if someone invests in your one-on-one, if someone, someone gets if you're a copywriter and you have a web page, you write their web pages, right? Do they get a bonus with that? Do they get an extra, if you write someone's copy for their sales page, do we have a holiday bonus that is they get that and they get an extra review of their About Me page? I'm making this up. Or do you have ideally something you've already created? Do you have some templates for how to write their About Me page that you're giving away as a bonus that's usually $199? Totally making this up here, right? But I think that's just something else that works always, right? These are year-long strategies. Like, none of this is stuff that you can't implement year-long. But I think we forget this time of year, because I think we just get into holiday mode or into freak out mode, that these strategies are available to us. And I think it's just a great time to remember some of these things. And then the last thing I would remember, or that I would play with, is remember that Black Friday is not the only time you can have a sale. Black Friday works because it's essentially a flash sale. And we've just all agreed that it's a time of year that we can do that. You can have your own flash sale in December. You can have your own, exactly what Black Friday is and why it can work so well for some businesses and why it won't work well for other businesses, honestly, but why it does work well for some businesses. You can implement that in December. And so I would just offer that to everyone here. If you're like, Black Friday was never my thing, but also I would like to make some extra cash in December, maybe it would feel really good to have, maybe every year you have a December flash sale. And by flash sale, what I mean is it's because it's a very short window and sprint, as opposed to maybe a regular launch or something that you have ongoing that is a longer time window. I think what's nice about the month of December is, because we have the new year coming up, because we have the holidays coming up, there are just reasons that make sense to everyone's brain. If you're going to have a flash sale, if you're going to have a special that's only 3 days or only 5 days, it just makes sense to all of our brains, because it's the last XYZ you have for the year, or because it is it is your holiday gift, or whatever that is. It just makes sense for our brain, I think, in a different way than I mean, we can always come up with positioning and reason, but it feels a little different in February for my brain if you're doing that, where it makes so much sense to me at the end of the year to play with something like that. So I think that's just the other way, where it's like, oh, well, maybe I just want to have a flash sale in December, and I can just have my own Black Friday if I haven't had a Black Friday sale. And I think that's a great way to leverage the time of year to be not tone deaf, but also to benefit from what works for a Black Friday sale, to really come from that mindset of like, and I'm going to treat this as a way, as like, this is just a way I make some extra cash. I know I'm like the last thing. And again, remember, y'all, do not implement all of these. These are just so you can get your brain thinking about like, oh, like how could I be thinking about this time of year? This last thought, and I was hesitant to share this, but I'm sharing this. And the reason I'm hesitant to share this is I think this thought and idea is really something to think about for next December in terms of making an extra 10K. But this is actually something my dad used to do. Many of you know I lost my dad a couple years ago, but my dad was a prolific race car driver. He had like a career that spanned 50 years, and he was a race car driving coach with some of the greats in like the greatest drivers in the US, and like people who won the Indy 500. And he was a one-on-one coach for drivers. And December was always his like slowest month with one-on-one clients. It was just like traditionally like that is just when there was like less need for one-on-one coaching. And so what he strategically did is, because he knew that, he strategically made December his biggest month every year, because he created an event in December that he got all of his clients primed for, because it was a slow time in the industry, which meant people had more time and availability. He created essentially what we consider a group program. It was a big investment. It was a ballsy move, I think. He would rent out a racetrack and get the firefighters, and he would pay for the ambulance and would pay for all of the things, and basically would rent the track out for a day and do a day of private coaching where people could come. They'd pay X amount for their car, and he would basically hop in and give every person a certain amount of like one-on-one coaching time and hot laps and all of that. And this was an event that, you know, he created for December every year, because it was the slowest month of the year, but also the slowest month in the industry, meaning there wasn't a lot going on for everyone, meaning they had the time and they also had a need. So it was like such a great thing, because people were like itching to drive and itching for this extra support. And this didn't exist. And so it was such, like, he was filling a need, if this is making sense. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to do this because I need to make money. Like, it was an actual need that time of year. But it also created a massive extra amount of cash every year. And year after year after year, he did this. He would start all the things we're talking about, pre-selling this in the summer, right? He would start selling the seats for this early, because people really got used to this being like a yearly thing, an event. And so I was hesitant to share this as a thought. Obviously, none of you are race car drivers, I don't think, or race car driving coaching, but the same thought process applies. If you're in an industry that tends to be slow this time of year, that also probably means people aren't super inundated and having their needs met, and it could be a really great time and opportunity to create something that gives them that opportunity this time of year. What I would say is, I think because we're at the end of November, it's probably a little late to start planning and launching something like that, which is why I was hesitant to share that as an idea. But it might be a seed to plant in your brain, where if you're like, oh, every December historically my business is just like not as busy a time of the year, and hey, look, maybe you want to take that as a reason to like check out, or like, you know, show up a market, but to like take half the month off. Many of my clients do that. But it can also be something for next year. It's like, actually, this is the time I'm going to create an extra 10K of cash, because I'm going to have something very specific that I plan for, that I launch, that meets a specific need that isn't being met in December in my industry, and to launch that in December. So again, here I'm like so mindful, because I'm not coaching everyone one-on-one. I do not want anyone walking away from this live stream going and doing all of the things, especially the week before Thanksgiving for those of you who in the US who celebrate, or before the holidays, or to hear this as like, now you need to go do a gazillion things and sell a gazillion things. Not at all. But I did want to give you some specifics, because sometimes it's just helpful to hear how simple it is, and like none of this is stuff that no one here has ever heard of or seen or thought before. It's not like, oh, there's some like super secret my clients have for making extra money at the end of the year. Right? These are things that work all year long. But sometimes it also sparks something for you where you're like, oh, that thing Kim said is totally something that's easy to apply to what I'm already doing. Remember what I said with the gym example, right? I'm going to go do extra at the gym today within the workout I'm already doing. I'm not adding on an extra workout. I'm just going to put the resistance up 2 notches. I'm just going to allow myself to go a little extra fast during my sprint instead of just doing the bare minimum. That's what I want you to take away from this conversation, is really starting to be in that mindset of what is that extra that's available to you? How can you decide to notice it, to be available to it? What did I share today that allows you to do a little extra, be available for a little extra with what you're already doing, or to start to think about, right, what do I want to apply in January? What do I want to apply next year? Not how can you go do all the things? Please, 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 please. Y'all promise me, because I will be so sad if I hear from someone that they listen to this live stream and then they spend all of December like creating 45 new things and launching. That is not what this conversation is. And then the last reminder I want to give everyone, if you do nothing else, like the two nuggets I want you to walk away with is that mindset shift of getting out of no one buys in November, no one buys in December. I'm going to just try to get by. I'm just going to try to make just enough. And what we were talking about with the decision, I'm going to decide that I am going to go after, I get to have extra, I get to do that little extra 3%, because again, that tells you already have enough. You're already in abundance, that you're available to more. And then to really remember and to think about, how can I continue to show up in market? If you do nothing else, if you just continue to show up in market and sell through the end of the year, or through until you take time off, right? Maybe you're taking 2 weeks off, but that's still like 3 more weeks of the year, right? How can I show up with that mindset of I'm available for extra? I'm going to do maybe that extra 3% and really continue to market. That alone is going to make a difference in your business in December, but also next year. And then the other things they're icing on the cake to play with. So I'm going to hang on for 1 second as I just share what I have available for you in case anyone has any last questions for me. Otherwise, we'll hop off. But if you're listening to this and you heard me talk about like, hey, wait a second, maybe now is a good time of the year for me to start thinking about, yes, my mindset and how I think as a CEO and how I both process stuff as a human, but also really learn how to think about my business like a business, treat my business like a business, start to think like and operate my business like a CEO. And I'm starting to think about not just how can I make an extra 10K this month or through the end of the year, but I really want to start thinking about 2024 and how I can have January like hit the ground running, and how I can have Q1 be my best quarter yet and really set myself up for 2024 to be different than 2023. I do believe now is a great time to start thinking about that. Yes, that is everything we're talking about here in terms of like, I guess it's a bit of a like an urgency marker, but I really do think this is the time of year to start thinking about those things. And so if you're in that place and you would like some support with both the mindset side of things as well as the clarity around your strategy and the specific strategy that works for you in that action plan, I would love to connect. I will drop a link for a discovery call. We are technically full for November. We had a spot I announced that opened up unexpectedly last week, but that I'm so grateful. That fills within a day and a half, y'all. However, I usually take Fridays off in the month of December, and I opened up a Friday for one of my other clients. So I have some time I'm working. So if someone wants to hop into a November, I will open up one more intensive this month. Otherwise, we do have an intensive available in December, and I think I shared this last week. January has been filling up more than December. So we do have an intensive in January. If not, we can look at January and February, but I would love for those of you who are like now is the time, I like really want to dig in. I would love to connect with you and offer that to you. So I'll drop that link for you. And then otherwise I'll be back next week. We are going to be talking a little bit more planning through the end of the year and some of the things I'm myself doing as a multi-6-figure business owner, as well as what I'm coaching my clients around. So join me for that. We'll do that before we head into the holidays. All right, I love you all so much. Thank you for being here, and we will be back next week. Bye.